Twitter's thin-skinned idiot owner just announced a new policy that once again proves that he never actually cared about freedom of speech. But unfortunately for him, the move this time was so absurd that it blew up in his big stupid face almost immediately. So it started when a bigot with an anti-trans newsletter called Transparency whined on Twitter about being called cis, and unless he's trans, that's just objectively correct, but nevertheless, he writes, yesterday, after posting a tweet saying that I reject the word cis and don't wish to be called it, I receive a slew of messages from trans activists calling me sissy and telling me that I am cis, whether or not I like it. Just imagine if the roles were reversed. You poor thing. It sounds like you've been traumatized. I would definitely say that you're a victim. He actually unironically just said, imagine if the roles were reversed. Excuse me? As if trans people aren't dead named and misgendered all the time on this platform? The lack of self-awareness from some of these conservatives is astounding, honestly. But wait, because Elon Musk responded saying repeated targeted harassment against any account will cause the harassing accounts to receive at minimum temporary suspensions. The words cis or cisgender are considered slurs on this platform. I'm sorry, but what? So you mean to tell me that Mr. Free Speech himself is saying you will literally be banned from his platform if you use descriptive words to objectively identify someone who isn't trans? Really? That's all it takes? Cis, for those of you who don't know, literally just means not trans. In the same way that we say straight instead of not gay, we say cis instead of trans. If you're literally bothered by descriptive language, then congratulations, you are the biggest snowflake in the world. But keep in mind that on Elon Musk's Twitter, cisgender is a slur. Meanwhile, dead naming and misgendering trans people is A-OK. Because as LGBTQ Nation reports, Twitter's policy used to state we prohibit targeting others with repeated slurs, tropes, or other content that intends to degrade or reinforce negative or harmful stereotypes about a protected category. This includes targeted misgendering or dead naming of transgender individuals. On April 8th, that final line was removed. Just imagine if the roles were reversed, they said. Unbelievable. But don't you worry, because this isn't an attempt to stifle freedom of speech, contrary to popular belief, because James responded on Twitter saying, to those who have asked, this is not restricting free speech. I did not request, nor did Elon agree to suspend accounts for using the term cis. He is talking about repeated targeted harassment. What this does is restore parity and common sense. And of course, Elon Musk responded to that by saying, yes. As if none of us noticed him updating Twitter's policies to allow transphobic harassment. Furthermore, he just tweeted about the great conversation he had about Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, which is pretty interesting considering the fact that Modi has many authoritarian tendencies, and he even suppresses free speech, which Elon Musk claims is very important to him, and that includes the free speech of his critics, and he even pressured Elon Musk to censor criticisms of him on Twitter, and Elon Musk complied. But don't you worry, Elon Musk cares deeply about freedom of speech. It is just ridiculous how these people will say one thing, do something completely different, and then pretend as if we all didn't just see them be openly hypocritical. Now, of course, J.K. Rowling tweeted about this from her castle on Turf Island, justifying Musk's decision, saying, cis is ideological language signifying belief in the unfalsifiable concept of gender identity. You have a perfect right to believe in unprovable essences that may or may not match the sexed body, but the rest of us have a right to disagree and refuse to adopt your jargon. And Elon Musk responded to that saying, exactly. It's honestly hilarious how fragile these people are. They couldn't survive a day being trans if they were trans. I mean, imagine getting this bent out of shape because somebody used a descriptive word. I can't imagine it. Like, imagine if somebody said, hey, Mike, you have dark brown hair. And I responded by saying, how dare you? The color of my hair isn't dark brown. It's not blonde. I mean, it's so petty and petulant that even if I were deeply offended by a word like cisgender, I would just keep my mouth shut because I don't want to look like a complete imbecile. But these snowflakes can't help themselves. They've got to complain, they've got to whine because they want you all to know that they're the victims and they're triggered. Yeah, Now, I can't not point out how badly this backfired, because this backfired badly. So almost immediately after Elon Musk announced this new policy, guess what happened? Well, of course, cisgender started trending on the platform, with thousands and thousands of people either making fun of Elon Musk or calling him cisgender. And this happened immediately after he made this announcement, because people wanted to challenge this policy to see if it was actually as ridiculous as he's saying. And as somebody who participated, I have not yet been banned. But Twitter cisgender owner is, I guess, learning about the Streisand effect in real time. But on a serious note, Gage chimed in with a crucial point, saying using the word cisgender is now a slur and might warrant suspension, but repeated calls for genocide of trans people from countless large accounts are okay. And that is a very important point. Hate speech against trans people has been absolutely genocidal and downright Nazi-esque in many instances since Elon Musk removed those protections for trans people. But what does this cis fuckface do? He introduces a new policy to insulate transphobic people from perceived bigotry. And as of late, Elon Musk really has gone mask off when it comes to trans issues, and he's just gone full-blown fascist, even calling for doctors who provide gender-affirming care for trans youth to be jailed. Now, I think this stems from a grudge that he's holding against his own daughter, who came out as trans and wants nothing to do with Elon Musk. As LGBTQ Nation explains, Musk has amped up his public disdain of all things trans since his transgender daughter, 18 at the time, applied for a legal name change in 2022. She cited the reason for the formal request as gender identity and the fact that I no longer live with or wish to be related to my biological father in any way, shape, or form. Musk's outburst came a year to the day news of his daughter's name change request broke. So it's hard to fathom why someone like Elon Musk, who has all the money and influence in the world, would be so obsessed with trans people, but I take it that his daughter being trans probably has something to do with it. And when regular parents reject LGBTQ plus children, that's extremely damaging. Psychologically and materially, some of them get kicked out from their homes. But when a billionaire who controls a massive communication utility like Twitter goes anti-trans and rejects his child, he can do even more damage at the macro level than the average bigot. So it kind of seems like all of these new policy changes is some twisted attempt to get back at his daughter, but we can't prove this, right? This is all just speculation. Either way, it's immature and it's sickening. And Elon Musk truly is a bad person. And I hope that an actual alternative to Twitter emerges soon, because this platform really just isn't a safe place for trans people or its allies. But there's another element to this story that I want to explore, and that is Musk's uninformed lies about the person who coined the term. So he also tweeted, "The contemptible creep that manufactured the term cis has serious problems, ignore him." Now, Steve Monticelli responded to that saying, "Beyond disturbing that Elon Musk is promoting a false narrative about who coined the term cisgender, but then again, it's entirely unsurprising that his transphobia has overridden his capacity for differentiating truth and fiction. This person is not the originator of the term." And Steve is correct. The person who actually coined the term is Dana DeFosse, and she wrote an op-ed that was published by the HuffPost back in February, where she explained the origins of this word that she coined back in 1994, and also explained why it's not meant to be offensive, despite the fact that so many cisgender people take it as a slur. She writes, "It began innocently enough. I was in graduate school and was writing a paper on the health of trans adolescents. I put a post on alt.transgender to ask for views on transphobia and inclusion on the campus of the University of Minnesota. I was struggling because there did not seem to be a way to describe people who were not transgender without inescapably couching them in normalcy and making transgender identity automatically the other. I knew that in chemistry, molecules with atoms grouped on the same side are labeled with the Latin prefix cis, while molecules with atoms grouped on the opposite sides are referred to as trans, so cisgender. Although I've not yet experienced personal attacks for being associated with its creation, it is painful when people imply it was intended to hurt others. I never believed that adding the word to the lexicon caused problems. It only revealed them. Whatever the fate of the word, I feel compelled to speak out against the idea that it is hateful. It saddens me to hear that people feel harmed by the word cisgender. Is the creation of the word to blame? No, cisgender is just the straw man. It is easier to attack a word than to address the reasons people feel intimidated by discussions of gender identity. The word is a threat because it linguistically separates biological sex from socially constructed categories of woman and man. That gender is a social construction undermines heteronormativity, critical to defending patriarchal sex roles and procreation. It is not surprising that those who have garnered dominance and privilege from traditional gender roles feel threatened and compelled to lash out. These ideas are not new, but the word cisgender repackages them in a way that is more potent and visceral. Yeah, so this is a classic case of those at the tippy top of the social hierarchy feeling oppressed that others are getting equal rights, right? Nobody's usurping anybody. Trans people are asking for equality, and bigots who are denying them equality think that them getting equal rights and equal treatment is them being oppressed. It's a tale as old as time, but I wish that I could read you more from that article, but it's very, very long. It's a really thoughtful piece. I'll link to that down below if you want to read the full thing. But what she says here perfectly explains, in my opinion, the backlash. Words like cisgender prevent bigots from otherizing people who they've already deemed abnormal. And the word cis linguistically makes all people, regardless of gender identity, normal. And that matters because being trans is normal. It's been documented in our species since the dawn of time, so there's no reason why the language should inadvertently suggest that a certain portion of humans are abnormal just because they have a gender identity that isn't as common as the rest of the species. But language constantly changes, and she even mentioned that some LGBTQ plus people aren't even really satisfied with terms like cis and trans because it doesn't adequately account for the people that don't fall within the gender binary. And currently, trans is sort of an umbrella term that also encompasses non-binary people too, but it's possible that that language evolves with time as well, so non-binary people are also accounted for in the language that we use. But for right now, cisgender is not a slur. But because transphobes like Elon Musk insist that it is a slur, well, people are going to go out of their way to remind him that he is cisgender, because that's just what the internet does. So in closing, Elon Musk is cisgender. That's a fact. Facts don't care about your feelings, Ellen. But he's also a moron and a bigoted piece of shit and a crybaby. And there's so many more descriptive words that I could think of when it comes to Elon Musk, but we'll just end the video there so we're not here all day.
Woke mob. Woke mob.
Woke ideology.
Woke ideology.
Woke ideology.
Woke ideology.
Woke ideology.
Woke test.
Woke ideology.
Woke Olympics.
Woke ideology.
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 Weaponized wokery.
Woke ideology.